Hey, welcome everybody to AI News and Gurus, the show for intelligent distributors. My name is Brian Hopkins, and I am the Chief Operations Officer here at DSG, and I'm here with my good friend and partner, the Brooks Hamilton. Welcome, Brooks.
Hey, Brian.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, so good. This is going to be fun.
I tell you what, man, this is gonna be more fun than the Bears game was last night. Let's go. So yeah, I'm really excited that we're here today. Man, we got a really good show. We're gonna have a great argument at the end of this. But before we get into the real meat of this, let me do a little business and talk about what we're really excited about here at DSG. And it's honestly, it's tools I wish I had when I was running a distributor company because they're really powerful suite of tools. The first one is Customer RX. Now, most of you have seen some of these before where you get a NPS score and it's just a score itself. Customer RX really differentiates itself that says, I'm going to give you exactly what the score is, but I'm going to tell you exactly where to go fix it. So if I got a problem with my Cincinnati branch, with my will call, it's going to tell me that. If I've got a problem with inventory in Phoenix, it's going to tell me that. So it's not just about getting a random raw score. It's about making action that can make your experience better. Employee RX is built on the same exact infrastructure. It's built to tell you exactly where your employees feel about what's going on in your business and where you can pinpoint actions to make it better, right? We are in this global war for talent. It's really hard to find the right people, and it's really hard to keep the right people. This is a tool that'll absolutely allow you to figure out what's going on with your experience and what you can do to fix it. And then the last one, and probably most importantly, is Demand RX, right? So sales is king. So Demand RX is a system that allows you to take and understand what your sales potential is by account, by sales rep, to allow you to really pinpoint on the customers that you have and where you're missing those sales targets and where you can go get more growth. So these three things together do what we as distributors do, right? It gives us information and we translate it into action. So go to distributionstrategy.com, click on the software tab, and you'll be able to set up a demo with us today. All right, Brooks, let's get into the fun part of this discussion, man.
Let's do it.
Before I do that, though, let me remind you, I forgot. We do have a Q&A, so if you have a question, something about you want to know from us, shoot it out there and we'll try to get it in. But let's talk a little bit about the news. So last week, was a pretty wide distribution of information in the AI world. It was a big deal, a lot of fanfare. But OpenAI released what they called the Agent Kit. And it's really this new way for people to start making agents easier to build and deploy. So I'll ask you, Brooks, if people haven't heard of it, what is it? Why does it matter? What's the big deal?
Yeah. So OpenAI a couple weeks ago had their OpenAI Dev Day. So this is where they invite developers, like Apple has these events as well.
Yeah.
They bring developers in and they say, hey, here are all the neat tools that we're coming out with. Here's how we're enhancing it. And as part of that, they also had a really neat session where they talked and had an award ceremony for companies who have spent more than 1 trillion tokens with them. T with a T. Yes, 1 trillion
A
tokens.
trillion tokens.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
incredible.
there were 10 companies also that they gave that award to. Shockingly, it was actually Duolingo who was the number one user out there. Um, so there was a lot that they had to announce, and one of the big announcements that they had was Agent Kit, which is, as you said, allowing users who are not tremendously technical to build workflows and agents. Um, if we think about an ChatGPT, that's fantastic. It's a chat, but we also need to be pretty proactive when we use it. So ChatGPT doesn't come into our lives so much as we need to reach out to it.
Yeah, right.
Um, and when we think about like what what capability it has. It's primarily it understands the digital world through text. And what OpenAI was providing an agent kit was a way to create um, these little workflows in a visual way, which allows ChatGPT to go from agent that you talk to or chatbot that you talk to instead create little digital entities which can help you with your work. So the agent kit is really has like two forms, and for our conversation today, it's like it's an agent builder, which is a visual studio canvas to go drag and drop your workflow definition. So if I'm going to do something like, hey, let's check the status of an order, okay, I need something to begin it. I need systems that I'm going to go check. Have some business logic, what I'm going to go do, and then I'm going to go spit it out either to a report or to some other system. Previously, to do that, it's not all that easy, but there are some other good applications out there that do things like this, like N8N, Make, Gumloop. These are all organizations that create these visual flow builders. But what's specific about OpenAI is, and the second portion of what they released was they give you the other key capabilities that are needed to go build these agents. So integration, testing, deployment approach, documentation, um, the language model itself, and guardrails. So really, it's a pretty broad sweep of capabilities that's probably larger than any other one vendor out there, and very focused on trying to build these things where somebody doesn't have very much technical background.
Yeah, I thought a lot about that, right? Because it's usually these things become, here's the IT project handed over them, and they go behind the mystery box and they create whatever we ask them to do, and they come back with it. I spent some time with it last week as a complete novice in all of this, right? And this ability to build agents. And I had a conversation with ChatGPT building the agent. So I didn't even have to know which things to drag and drop and put where. I just had a business conversation with it and it created the agent for me.
Yeah, yeah. That hits me in two places. One is awesome to see that distance in between idea and
Yeah.
outcome get a lot shorter. But I think it also resets the bar for every software provider out there of how should I go about configuring this application? The answer typically is talk to my professional services team.
Right.
Going to get a lot more interesting when to configure an application, you talk to the application.
Yeah. And again, I think it has implications for IT teams. The ability and skill you need shifts, not just from can I write code and can I solve system problems, but how do I help the business build these agents?
Yeah. How do I build these agents? So the ideally what I would hope to see is that IT teams are great at assembling everything around the key business users who are going to be building these things, but instead they allow the creativity and domain expertise that the business users have in order to go build out and prototype these applications. So maybe the business users don't take it all the way to deployment. I think most IT teams would have a pretty strong negative reaction to that idea, and I
Yeah.
think rightfully so.
Stay out of my shop. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certainly a distribution of tasks that's important, but let's let everybody maximize their own role in this. IT is great at ensuring that we adhere to the right standard security requirements and deployment approaches, but they're not experts in the domain areas. Instead, what we should allow for is those individuals who are closest to the problems to ideate, to prototype, to have some fun, throw stuff against the wall. If they hear a problem, great, go spend an afternoon building a
Yeah.
little agent that halfway works, and then show it to IT. But I think we all have a different role to play in this, and it's a big shift of um, business teams not being allowed to play in configuration land,
Hmm.
um, whereas this really opens that up. But it's going to be up to OpenAI, the other vendors, as well as IT teams to figure out how do we enable the business to make sure that they can move quickly and bring these capabilities into the organization.
Yeah, I mean, to wrap this topic up, I think it's a really huge step forward. You know, we talk about how do you keep millennials and people who enter the into the world, our world that we've been in a long time, how do you keep them engaged? But what better way to be able to say, you see a problem, you've got a tool now to create, to your point, kind of a semi-agent. There's
Yeah,
your idea, you bring it to IT and it comes to life.
yeah, yeah.
You as an individual, you're bringing value to the company. You feel really good about that. There's a
I think
definitely way for employee engagement for certain.
that's a great point, Brian. We all have different roles and skills that we're bringing to this. And I think as we know, with any team like the Bears, you're trying to maximize
Especially
the
lately, 3-0 last 3 weeks, buddy. 3-0.
you're trying to put together um, each individual's peak performance area
Yeah,
and lean on that rather than trying to peanut butter spread the whole thing.
yeah,
I,
love it.
I think what our prior approach was.
Yeah, I think lastly is just this is why these kind of learning about these things is important, right? Because it does have implications for us as a business, even though it feels like it's over Chat GPT and it's over here. So I think that was great. So let me ask you this. We were on a program last week, Brooks, you and I, and um, we had a vendor on with us, and we were talking about agents,
Mhm.
right? And one of the questions that came up was, hey, do you think if we kind of wait it out and see where things are going to happen, make sure AI becomes a little bit more mature, that we can catch up to those people who are already implementing?
Mhm.
And you said something last week that took me aback. I'd really love to hear a little more about it. And I believe the quote was, until this month, I believe that people could catch up.
Yeah.
So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about that, because I think the audience needs to hear the urgency behind that, because it shocked me.
Yeah. Um, I've felt that for quite some time that while it was really advantageous to get into the AI game, um, it was an option because most competitors and most capabilities were not yet there in order to make it a required business activity. Um, and I was evaluating that basically in terms of how much knowledge worker, corporate worker stuff, tasks can language models handle? And the answer to me
Mm,
was pretty unsatisfactory. Like help with things, absolutely. Ideas, emails, some presentation work, and so on. Um, but handed a task of, listen, I need to do some financial projections. It's all going to be in Excel. Forget it. Just it wasn't going to happen. Last month, that changed.
okay.
So
What
what we
changed?
saw was one with Claude, the offering by Anthropic. They came out with a set of what they
Mm,
call tools. Those tools can do things like build out Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, and Excel docs. And you can give it a medium-sized prompt and receive some astoundingly good results. So, for example, we use it to build out um, a operating model for how IT and professional services team can work together. So it cranked out a 10 tab Excel document with racy diagrams, color
nice.
coded, uh, and it was actually pretty well thought through. There are some modifications here and there, but this is an entirely different level. So What that says to me is much more knowledge work is now going to be possible via these language models. And don't think of it as you're replacing a person with a language model. That's not the right way to look at this. Instead, think of it as the ability to create meaningful knowledge worker outputs is now within the realm of language models
Yeah. Hmm.
as a tool. So as you begin to create workflows like, hey, I have an order that is behind. I'm going to go investigate what's going on with it. I'm going to go check the systems, write the emails necessary for follow up, assemble the results, create a PowerPoint presentation, track the results, modify the systems necessary, generate an Excel document that has the action items needed for follow up. That's all possible now. So, organizations that take advantage of this are going to be at an advantage.
Yeah.
And it is truly game on. In order for it is game on for those organizations to take advantage of those capabilities. That places our um, the number of tasks that are at striking distance for these language model enabled workflows to now be quite broad. And I think whoever is on the sidelines needs to get off the sidelines and
Yeah.
begin to get in this game.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for a while, and that's why that shocked me when you said it, because I'm on the fence of, hey, you need to get moving, right? Because I don't think you're going to be able to catch up once your competitors have taken root with some of these AI driven tools in your business and the kind of productivity it can create. So I'm glad you clarified that, because like I said, it shocked me. So with that, let me just take a couple of minutes because you mentioned LLMs, right? And they've been my friend for about 2.5 years, and I've gotten pretty good with them. And I've done some of the things that you talked about. I've got a roadmap, and I've got an ROI calculator that was done completely with Claude. I'm not a coder, none of that.
Yeah.
So these tools are amazing. And I try to tell people all the time when I meet with them or talk to them about, why do you care about an LLM? Because most of the time people think that's ChatGPT, it's Claude, it's Gemini, whatever tool they decide to use. It's much more than that. And knowing what they are and what they do is really important. So, and it's a reason it's important for leaders is that you have to know how these things operate. So as you start to go down the road of AI, like you're saying we need to be doing, and you're starting to look at different tools, knowing how these large language models work, help you make a better decision as a leader. Like it or not, 30% or so of your team, I think you wrote about it today in your article, your team is using these things.
Yeah.
And if they're using them in a way that you're not sanctioning, you're saying, nope, you can't use them, they're using them anyway. And you're probably putting yourself at a much bigger disadvantage because they're putting information into the ether that you probably don't want out there.
Yes.
So that's what this lesson isn't about. It's not about that at all. What I want to be able to do is to help people make that connection between a large language model and, let's call it, an AI inventory system, for lack of a better term. So right now, as distributors, we have ERPs, we have CRMs, we have pricing systems, we've had really good systems for a lot of years. And unless they're AI enabled today, they all have something very much in common. And that is, a human being needs to be the one that interpret the data, run the report, talk to 10 people, figure it out. And that is limiting to a degree, right? It's limiting to the information that person knows, and it's limiting to the information that they have access to.
It's also
So
irritating.
it's, yeah. So what I want to do is just show you real quick how, and this is literally made up in Claude yesterday morning over my coffee in about 8 minutes. But it's an idea about how these things will look to you in the future. So let's pretend you've got an ERP sitting behind here. This is your LLM that sits on top of your AI driven inventory optimization system. And your general question or your general idea is that I need to avoid a stock out in June, and I really only want to ship pallet quantities only. So that's your objective. Now, because I asked it a very natural question that anybody would ask, and now I've got a way to ask it in a way with the large language model, it's going to go back to the AI and figure that out for me.
So
So
what
now
are we
it
looking at here?
says, what's that?
What are we looking at here?
So we're looking at, here's the recommendations, right? So it says, if you want to meet that objective that you just gave me in a natural way, here's what you need to do. You need to take 2 pallets, ship them June 6th, so they get there on June 13th. From Great Lakes to the regional hub, from then ship same thing from the southeast to the regional hub. But it goes further, right? Because the ERPs and everyone else tells you what the transfer should be. But now it says, okay, here's the cost benefit analysis of doing that. And this is again a scenario, but all these systems will do this and much more. But now it's giving you freight costs. It's giving you kind of a net benefit analysis. And now it's saying, all right, here's the impact to the network. So all the things that you would have taken hours to read reports and meetings to have with people now are available in a very natural way using AI systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I show you, go ahead.
I love this in the way that it condenses that information, focuses it on action, and does what people are best at, which we have great context, we have decision-making capabilities.
Yes.
Also, we're the ones who are responsible for outcomes, not systems. So I think it allows AI to go do the things that it's good at, and it allows us to do the things that we are good at.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that's one of the benefits of how these systems all together is it's not just that, is the ability to pull information out that you just never saw. Right. And at some point, we as human beings have to come to grips with the fact that the AI knows more than we do sometimes, because it has a much bigger context window than we do. I've been doing this for 30 years and I get how it works, but there's a whole lot I don't get. And this will come and give you that in a way that you can read it and react to it.
This is very cool. It is very
Yeah.
cool. This looks like hours and hours of research work.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's not.
I think this opens an interesting question, and I know we're gonna get over to some other things, but I think it
Yeah.
opens an interesting question about how are you going to use this to improve your customer journey?
Yes.
And what are the friction points that you had, not just with your customer, but that you had internally in order to achieve a higher service level? So
Yeah. I mean, if it comes
here's an
down to
order.
where's the pain, right? We tell people all the time, where's the pain? And can AI help you alleviate that pain or not? And sometimes it can't. There may be other things you have to do, but you at least have to have that hard conversation about where that's at.
This is very cool.
All right. So we are going to open up the question, right? The question becomes, what do we do about jobs, right? And before we go there, another release got released like 2 weeks ago, but I finally got access to it. And of course, it's gone off my screen. Sora is a video creation system within OpenAI. And what they were able to do is to take video imaging, in my opinion, probably a year or two ahead of where it's been very quickly. So I want to, if I can figure the Zoom out, guys, sorry about that. First day with the new Zoom.
So in terms of Sora, the scuttlebutt that I've heard is one, it's really phenomenal in terms of levels of realism. The
Mhm.
second is it seems to have intuited various understanding of the physics of the physical world, which I think was a surprise the first time that Sora came out. So it understands things like fluid dynamics while not having any background in how to calculate fluid dynamics. Um, so there are really an amazing number of things, and you can also make some pretty cool little videos.
Yeah. So that being said, here's one I created that'll kind of set up our next segment. Your job to a tractor, but to a horse who learns how to drive a tractor.
Don't be silly. Farmers will never be able to do their job without me.
Your job to a tractor, but to
Thank
a
you, Mr. Ed.
Yeah, it's the Mr. Ed. So it's one of those things that you start playing with it and trying to figure out what's going on with it. But it was fun to do, and I think it sets up bringing our next two amazing panelists on board. Ian Heller, everybody knows Ian, Chief Founder and Chief Strategy Officer at DSG, and our good friend Josh Bablicki, our new Director of Marketing at DSG. So we're bringing these guys onto the stage, and we are going to talk about jobs. What do we do about jobs, guys? We have this ongoing debate, and I'll tell you this: I sat in a restaurant with Ian probably a year and a half ago, and we had this debate about AI is coming, it's going to destroy jobs, and I'm over here saying AI is coming, it's just going to help everybody out and help us be better. So I'm not going to tell you where I landed with that discussion, but that's what I want to talk about. I've got some dissenting opinions, and Brooks, I'm going to let you kind of handle the moderation because we're teammates, and I don't want to create any angst between the three of us. So take it away, my friend.
Well, guys, I've been super curious. I think Ian and I have been having this discussion for a while as well. But as we move closer into the realm of more knowledge work in particular being able to be handled by these models today, and then I think that we'll see even between now and the end of the year, even more impressive capabilities come out. This opens a natural question. There are currently people who are doing this work.
Mhm.
What do we think the outcome is going to be as we begin as leaders thinking about how this is going to play out in our organizations? And also, we're leaders not just of our companies, but oftentimes in our societies and communities, what the implications are going to be there. So, if you all wouldn't mind just kind of first uh, uh, just giving a quick summary, what are your thoughts on where we're going to be headed in, let's say, the next 9 months or 12 months? And then we can kind of open up the aperture on timeframes longer than that. But Josh, would you mind going first?
Yeah, sure. Um, so I don't have an exact projection of where things will be in 9 months to 10 years to wherever, because the decisions today, I think, need a framework where that's going to take shape. And that's why this discussion today is so important. It's what are the decisions that leaders are going to make today that allow us to uh, not just barrel down the road as fast as we can and run into a whole lot of trouble. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking is you asked the question of, if I don't get started today, can I wait it out, see what happens, see what takes shape? And it always reminds me of the tortoise and the hare story.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you got the people that are like, I'm going to throw AI at literally every department. I'm going to go as fast as I can. I'm going to go, 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 go. I'm going to try to make everything automated, try to eliminate every human interaction as I can because that's less efficient, all these different aspects, try to get to the end of the race. Then you have the tortoise people sitting there going, okay, I'm going to see what the hare does, and then I'm going to follow that guy. And I think both of these takes are going to lead us into the tortoise is going to be left behind. Obviously, they're not going to be able to catch up. The hare is going to be all by himself with no people around him. So instead of framing it as a tortoise and the hare, I think we need to talk about this transition as a beaver. Leaders need to be building the ecosystem in which they are going to thrive the most. They are going to control how that ecosystem functions. And everyone around them is going to start to integrate and find their place in that ecosystem. So that is my allegory of where AI needs to be going. Not 6 months, but 10 years. And the people that are going to make that ecosystem are building now. They are building the ecosystem in which the industry and all of its people are going to find a place and be able to thrive in. And that's the vision that I think industry leaders need to start to ascribe to. Otherwise, it's going to be a race to the finish line where no one wins and everyone's in as alone. And the industry is going to disappear, essentially, if we all take the hare route and just throw AI at everything. So that is my allegorical, philosophical opening that I think I'm going to hand off to Ian. Ian, where do you think things are going to be in 9 months to 10 years?
Well, Brooks, did you have something to add?
Yeah. So just Josh, what I'm hearing is we need to be thoughtful at this point about how we're approaching our decisions of replacement or not. But it also kind of sounds like, hey, you think that there's a path that we can go down where we can become more efficient, but it doesn't necessarily mean total job elimination. But those are decisions which we're going to have to make. And if we don't make those decisions in that way, then we could end up with some pretty significant job losses. Is that?
Yeah, bringing it back to the distribution industry, I think the decisions today on how to implement AI is going to be what job functionality is augmented and where does that free up time and how is that time utilized, as well as what jobs functionality might drop because of the AI efficiencies created, and how do those people's skill sets, legacy knowledge, and relationships integrate back into different parts of the organization. So it's not job elimination, it's a restructuring of the entire ecosystem that distribution is functioning.
Okay. All right. Pretty broad. Ian, what are your thoughts on this?
It's going to be a bloodbath of job loss.
So dramatic, dude. Come on.
I'm being dramatic.
Slash and burn.
Look, my undergraduate degree is in history, right? That doesn't make me an expert on history because there's so much of it that nobody can really master at all. However, I have put some time into understanding like what happens when new technologies come online, all the way back to the Ned Ludd and the saboteurs who attacked the looms in the powered by windmills in Holland because they were taking away loomers' jobs, right? That hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Up until I remember I read an article in the New York Times that was written late in the stages of World War I, and they were debating. Well, actually, weren't debating. They were positing that Germany and the United States were going to be ahead industrially in terms of manufacturing after the war versus Great Britain, because Great Britain was taking out the factory automation they put in place to meet war demands, and so that they could create jobs for returning soldiers. And the United States and Germany were not going to do that. They were going to keep their factory automation. And that happened, right? And so this debate about, hey, technology is going to destroy jobs in the short term and it's going to create jobs in the long term, that actually has been the case throughout most of our history of technology, right? Now, there's a lot of pain that goes with that because you can't just take computer coders or can't just make computer coders out of coal miners, right, overnight. So over the course of a generation and through re-education and through job shift, eventually these technologies have created more jobs than they've destroyed. Two things are different now, in my opinion, with AI. One is the speed at which it's developing isn't giving society time to react, right? I mean, the job market for programmers has essentially dissolved, right? It's just our best and brightest who went to college 4 years ago in computer coding or computer programming because we told them that was a sure thing are now graduating into a cliff of a job market, right? Because, as people say, the new programming language is English because you could just like what Brian did with this really cool AI ROI model that he built, which is an amazing piece of software. And Brian, have you ever made software before?
Never. Not a
Right,
chance.
right. You just used English to do it, and it's amazing. And so that's happening. And now you get agentic AI is going to be much more powerful than the LLMs that we've seen. So this stuff is happening so quickly, it's not giving society time to react. Here's the second thing. We've never actually created a technology that's smarter than we are. And AI is going to be more capable. It already is in some ways. And it's going to be in the long run, probably in the medium run, more capable than human beings. So the question is, what's left for human beings to do that technology can't do better? I think the remaining pool of jobs that is stuff that humans can do better than technology will not be large enough to provide full employment uh, in any advanced nation, and there's just not going to be enough jobs to go around. So I think we're headed for huge concentrations of wealth into the hands of a few. We're going to count on them to redistribute that somehow through universal basic income. No way. We do not have an economic system ready to handle this type of job loss and this type of income redistribution, if you even believe in universal basic income. And last point, even if you do, given money to humans so they can be idle has a very, very poor track record historically. Idle
Yes.
humans do bad things. And so anyway, so that's it in a nutshell. As you guys know, I'm basically a positive person, but I just don't see a good outcome on this one. And I don't know how to get to one.
Can I jump in real
You might
quick
be
then?
right long term, I think. But I'm of the opinion that the technology is going to be ready before people are. So in our industry, I think it depends on the kind of company we're talking about too, right? If you're talking about multi-billion, multinational Grangers of the world, where there's a less likelihood to say, you know what, we can eliminate 600 jobs and we can put this AI in place. I think that's much more likely an outcome than a $250 million distributor who's been in the business for 45 years and has deep relationships with the people. I think that decision becomes much more difficult to make, and it becomes slower to make than it is big companies.
I have a question, and then I'm gonna jump it back over to Josh in a second. But Ian, I'd like to take your statement, which is, listen, most companies are going to look at this, especially larger companies, are going to look at this and identify areas of efficiency, and they will execute against it, and they will measure themselves against the other competitors who are furthest out in the field, look at that as the bar, and continue to use technology to replace people who are currently executing the job. The resultant will be material job loss, and it will show up, very heavily in certain categories at first and expand. So let's play it forward just a bit. Let's say we have that for, say, 4 years. What is likely, what is the response from society likely to be?
Are you
Can I
giving
jump in
that?
on that one?
Yeah,
This
go
is
ahead,
for
Josh.
Ian.
Yeah,
So yeah, because this, hold on, let me get my thoughts real quick. This goes back into the idea that we're going to eliminate all of the jobs, concentrate wealth into the top people. How are they going to keep making more money if they have all of the money and all of the power and all the control, right? So that's the situation that we're going to run into. And historically, you've seen it. France, you've seen it in all these nations where they concentrate all the wealth. There's an uprising. So I believe that we haven't seen the level of globalism and capitalism that we have had in history. It's been oligarchic, it's been monarchies, etc. And that's where I feel like the leadership today in the distribution industry and overall has to be a spirit of capitalistic entrepreneurship and not cashing out and bailing out on the system altogether. And seeing where that goes from 10 years from now, you're going, like Brian said, with the regional $250 million legacy companies or the big companies, who would you rather work with if you are a contractor or someone out there going to these distributors? You want to work with the person that didn't slash their entire workforce and cut the guy that I've been working with for 10 years, who knows my business, who knows all these things. You're going to want to go to someone who can get me the same commoditized parts that I need to do my business efficiently. So that's where the distributors and the leadership teams need to address what is our path forward and who's going to win that in the end. Like they might, like these giant mega corporations might have a lot of power, but that power will diminish if they sacrifice the human relationship side of the business. And in all of our research, when I was doing my prep for this, leadership is
Wait,
emphasizing.
you prep for this? That's not
A
fair.
little bit, yeah.
That's
I'm
not fair.
new to this industry. I had to be like, what is
Well,
distribution?
going against the
I had to
great
do
Ian
all my
Heller, you got to
Googling.
do something. Yeah, you know. Good job, Josh.
But according to the DSG research that we've looked into, over 40%, mostly up to 60%, depending on job functionality, relationships are going to be more important than the task automation, the task. So instead of measuring an employee by how many orders did you fulfill, it will be what is your strongest relationship? How many returning customers do you have? Like you're going to start to reassess where the emphasis is on your time, because instead of spending a day creating a quote and doing all that work and the data entry side of it, that can be done in 5 minutes to half hour, depending on review process. And then you've got that day back where you're going, okay, how do I serve that customer better? How do I look into what he's going to need, not tomorrow, not next week, but 6 months from now? So
Yeah,
you
but
start to,
Josh, you don't need that many people to do that work. That's
I
the
think you
problem.
do,
Yeah.
because where's that knowledge going to come from? Like we're taking tasks, we're taking data entry, which can be taught at a university, can be taught through an online course, and you're sacrificing industry knowledge and relationships. So you're going to need way more time with your management level. I think going forward, your managers and your directors are going to be so much more important for the solvency of your company, like the ability to keep going, because the new generations coming in won't have the opportunity to learn the industry on the job. They're not going to have that opportunity. So it's going to be a lot more one-to-one training, trying to pass that knowledge base down so that when I'm ready to retire, a new generation's coming in, and the companies that recognize that and start to structure their business, say, okay, we're building these efficiencies that we used to have to spend on all these tasks. We're going to take that legacy knowledge and allocate it to training our employees, training them on new tasks, and broadening our industry knowledge so we are the center of the ecosystem again. So that's where I think people should shift in order to be successful in what the world is going to lead towards.
Josh,
Yeah,
I'm
I
going
think in the
to
short term-
restate that and then throw it to you. So
Okay.
what I'm hearing is there may be kind of a hollowing out of doers, where there will be fewer. There will be organizations will rely more upon their management, and as this plays out, there may become some societal backlash that might lead to brand implications of which companies are more people companies versus AI companies. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, and you're looking at, I forgot to mention the employee side of it. So if I go and I want to lend my talents and my services to a company, am I going to go to the one that's slash and burned and just says, go to the AI machine and keep plugging the AI machine? Or am I going to go to the one that says, here's your path forward in our organization. We have a leadership training program. We augment all of our tasks with AI, and you are responsible for building relationships and building our market share.
Well,
The
luckily you don't have
problem
much of
is
a choice to make because the first one isn't hiring.
Yeah.
Ian, I'm going to throw it over to you. So
Okay.
where does this lead us? So if it's a bloodbath, then what?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a huge problem. I mean, it's kind of like, how many companies have you heard make the claim that we're going to do more and more automation with AI? We're not going to lay people off. We're going to get to more productivity through attrition. They say all the time, right? They all say that. Okay.
Easy path, it's the easy path out.
Yeah. Here's the problem. 60 to 70% of people who leave a company are doing so for another job. If nobody's hiring, those people aren't going to leave because there are no jobs for them to leave to. And so it's a myth that everybody can do this with attrition, because if everyone's attriting, ain't no one hiring, no one's going
You
to
can
leave.
do it to a good degree. I agree with you long term. I think short term, yes, but long term,
Right.
no.
Right. And so I think so I just want to make that point. Now, in terms of where this goes, I mean, each of us has two different identities, right? We got our work identity. We've got our identity as citizens of the country, citizens of the world. As citizens of the country, as citizens of the world, we need to push on our regulators and our politicians to start solving this problem, because this is the classic government problem. You ever heard the concept of a public good? The interstate highways are a public good because no individual firm can properly be incentivized to pay for the interstate highways, but everybody benefits. So we build highways, we build airports, we have a military to protect us. These kinds of public goods are solutions that come from the federal government. And I think the only entity big enough to offset the power of the tech bros, the power of the emerging AI leaders, is the federal government. There's zero momentum and very little evidence that the government will actually do that, by the way. But it's kind of like, they're our only hope. So I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, that was going to be my response to that is, well, we saw all the tech pro oligarchs behind the government. So, I mean,
Right.
we're asking for an impossibility at that point. So it's up to the individual and the corporations and the people behind it, because the little steps that we can take on an individual level, at a corporation level, can, I believe personally, can have that effect. I do agree with you that there needs to be legislation. There needs to be all these things happening, but in the short term and the near year out term, I think it's the ethical responsibility of the leadership at the corporations to say, how are we going to do this without completely sinking the ship?
But here's the problem. It's a race to the bottom, because if I don't do it and my competitor does, and he now has a 20-point cost advantage, customers are going to flock to that solution. I mean, look how many people say, I really don't like Amazon, and they buy there all the time, me included, right? Because the value proposition is so compelling, it's just irresistible sometimes because it's such a better solution than the alternatives. Now, two things you said, Josh. One is, there's going to be an uprising. Well, that could happen, right? I mean, you create poverty in large quantities, and that's always a risk. The second thing you talked about was that there may not be any income left, right? I mean, if nobody's working and there's a gigantic depression because of unemployment, the billionaires are losing money too, right? So they may be incentivized to contribute to changing the system somehow. I don't know. Maybe there's some hope there.
There was a conversation that we had a long time ago, or maybe it was a year and a half ago, with Josh. No, wrong.
I don't remember that one.
No. It'll come to me in a bit, but we talked about there may be a bifurcation of the economy. So there are the things which companies that build AI are interested in, and the companies that um, uh, utilize AI capabilities are going to be interested in. That is likely going to continue. I don't see that stopping. Demand is going to accelerate in those areas probably pretty rapidly. So that portion of the economy is going to be healthy, well equipped, and led. The other portion of the economy, which is provide goods and services to the humans running around, will be deprioritized. And those two economies will find themselves in some conflict with each other. We're seeing this in very material terms today in terms of the price of energy. So I don't know if you've yet received a notification from your retail energy provider that, hey, there are going to be some cost increases coming up. The projections on energy cost increases over the next 12 months are all positive. Energy costs are going to be going up because humans will be competing against AI models for energy usage. So that's just one of the areas where scarce resource competition is going to emerge in between these two economies. So all the tech bros and whatnot are going to be just fine. They do not need to rely upon the broader economy, just as long as a very sizable portion and thickly margined portion of the economy is doing fine.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Here's to me,
There's a
maybe
lot to this, and I don't.
we bring it up, and I want to kind of bring it back around to
Yeah.
today. I think we can all see what some downside scenarios are. I think we all want to avoid those downside scenarios. But there are also some pretty rough patches in terms of um, how people are going to perceive this. I'm not sure if somebody has approached you and said, hey, are you one of those AI guys that is kicking people out of work? But you should expect that to come.
Mm.
And similarly, the leadership of all of these organizations are also going to be asked that same question. And if there is significant pushback in the economy, like if they're releasing customer service agents and there are actually zero open customer service roles nationwide, that's going to be an issue. A lot of anger is going to come from that. The anger is not going to be focused on the politicians for not getting their act together on this. Politicians are very good at finding other people.
We're already angry at those people.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Naturally.
just as organizations go down this path, I'd like to kind of go back to something that Josh was talking about, which is how do we want to behave and be perceived? What is the brand that we want to build as this is going on, both for the immediate portion, which is how do I serve my customers well and be effective, but also how do I avoid some of the potential downside that may be coming my way in 3 to 5 years? So I would give a lot of thought to how do we augment, how do we manage our brand, how do we manage our people, and what are the internal rules within our organization that are set by our culture in order to guide our path over the next few years. I think those are some tremendously important discussions that need to happen because we're beyond the is AI going to happen? The answer is yes. Can we
Yeah.
see where it's going to happen? Yes. Can we see the speed is what it's going to happen? More or less. So now we need to go on to the next set of issues, which are how are we going to manage through this in order to ensure that we get the most out of it?
And if you look at the companies over the last 100 years, none of them, like very few, if any, exist, right? So the companies that might be giant controllers of the economies today, how they handle this next technological revolution may
Mhm.
determine whether or not they exist in 10 years.
Yeah, but most of those companies get consolidated through mergers and acquisitions. Most, very few of them go bust. That's just the nature of corporate
Mhm.
development.
Well,
All very good discussion points, boys. This has been a really good discussion. I tell you what, this is a never ending. I don't know if we'll ever solve the problem. We're going to continue to try, and we'll continue to debate back and forth. But short term, it's a problem. Long term, it's a problem. It's all a problem. One way or another, we got to figure it out. But that's what we do as distributors. We figure stuff out. So. With that, thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Before we go, real quick, let me just talk to you about a couple of really cool programs coming up next. We have our amazing Dr. Jonathan Bine talking everything state of e-commerce. This is one you will not want to miss. E-commerce has made dramatic changes over the last year, and Jonathan's going to kind of walk us through what all that means for us. And then lastly, speaking of productivity, we are going to have how distributors are driving productivity with process automation. So look forward to those next couple of weeks. Thank you guys for joining. This has always been fun, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.